Welcome back to your Dream Coach podcast. I'm your host, Shayla Wey. I'm a small business coach, leadership strategist, and someone who deeply believes that building a business should help you build a life that you love, not slowly take over the one you already have. On this podcast, we talk about three things that truly drive meaningful success: leadership, fulfillment, and sustainable growth. Because success in business isn't just about revenue. It's about building something meaningful while still having a life that feels aligned. And today's episode is one that I think will challenge the way a lot of entrepreneurs think about growth. Because most people believe success comes from a better strategy, better marketing strategies, better sales strategies, even better systems. But what I have found after years of coaching entrepreneurs and building teams is that strategy rarely fails first. Identity does. The business rarely grows beyond the identity of the person leading it. And I have seen this pattern over and over with entrepreneurs who are incredibly talented, incredibly hardworking, and incredibly capable. But they're trying to apply strategies designed for a CEO level identity while still thinking like the version of themselves who started the business. And when this happens, things feel heavy. Growth feels inconsistent. Leadership starts to feel exhausting because the real transformation in business doesn't start with strategy. It starts with who you believe you are inside the business. So today I'm talking about why identity always comes before strategy and how shifting the way you see yourself as a leader can unlock a completely different level of growth, both personally and professionally. So one of the biggest patterns that I have found working with entrepreneurs is this: the business always mirrors the leader. The business eventually also mirrors the identity of the leader, not their intentions, not their goals, not even their strategy, their identity. So if a leader sees themselves as someone who is still figuring things out, their business often stays in that stage. If they see themselves as someone who must personally control everything, the business never becomes scalable. So the idea is heavily discussed in the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, which explains that many entrepreneurs start businesses because they are good at a craft. But running a business requires a different identity. You move from being the technician to becoming the architect. And what I found is that this identity shift is where many entrepreneurs quietly get stuck. Because growing a business requires becoming someone new. And identity shifts can feel uncomfortable, but they're necessary. Another thing I've noticed is that identity quietly shapes what we believe is realistic. Because our identity determines what you believe is possible. So two people can have the exact same opportunity, but the one who sees themselves as capable of leading at a higher level will move differently. They will raise their prices, delegate sooner, create systems, invest in growth, because their identity allows them to see that version of success as possible. And this concept is explored in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, where he talks about identity-based behavior. And the idea is simple but powerful. We don't build habits based on goals. We build habits based on who we believe we are. So if someone sees themselves as a leader, they start behaving like one. And that behavior changes everything. Now, I've coached many entrepreneurs who are following the right strategy. But here's the thing, is that strategy without identity creates burnout. They have the right funnels, they have the right offers, even the right marketing, but the business still feels exhausting. And why is that? Because they're trying to execute strategies that require a higher leadership identity than they currently believe they have. So they compensate with effort, more hours, more hustle, more pressure. But what I found is that sustainable growth doesn't come from working harder. It comes from thinking differently about the role you play inside your business. And this is where leadership really begins. One of the most powerful shifts that I've experienced personally is realizing that leadership identity changes how decisions get made. Because leadership identity creates clarity. So when you see yourself as the CEO of the business, as the leader of the business or the department, you stop asking, oh, what should I do next? And you start asking, what does the business need from me right now? That question alone changes how entrepreneurs think about hiring, priorities, systems, standards. And this concept aligns closely with ideas in Dan Sullivan's strategic coach framework, where leaders focus on their highest value activities rather than constantly reacting. And when entrepreneurs shift into that mindset, clarity increases dramatically. Now, another pattern that I have found in leadership is that identity influences the standards that we tolerate. Identity shapes the standards that you hold. So the way a leader sees themselves determines the conversations that they have, the expectations they set, the behaviors that they allow. And there's a well-known leadership quote often attributed to David Morrison that says, "The standard you walk past is the standard you accept." And what I have found is that leaders who see themselves as true leaders don't avoid standards. They protect them because they understand that standards create culture. Now, identity also impacts how you show up in sales. And this is something I see constantly with coaching clients and entrepreneurs building businesses. Is sales confidence often has very little to do with sales scripts. It has everything to do with identity. When someone sees themselves as somebody who offers transformation, they show up differently. They speak with conviction, they hold stronger belief, and they lead conversations with clarity. But when someone sees themselves as someone who's trying to prove themselves, sales conversations often feel hesitant, and people can feel that, which is why identity plays such a big role in business growth. Now, there's a concept in psychology called self-concept expansion, because identity expands your capacity for growth. It essentially says that when people expand how they see themselves, their capacity expands with it. Now, this is also discussed in Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset. Phenomenal book. When someone believes that they are capable of growth, they start taking actions that support that belief. And over time, the identity becomes reality. In business, this is incredibly powerful because growth often requires stepping into leadership roles before you fully feel ready. Now, our identity creates alignment with fulfillment. So this is where the pillar that I coach people on of fulfillment really comes into play. Because I've seen many entrepreneurs build successful businesses that don't actually align with who they want to be. And when identity isn't aligned with the life you want, success can feel empty. So one of the questions I often ask clients is this: who do you want to become through building this business? Not just what you want to achieve, but who do you want to become? Because the identity that you build along the way is often more important than the milestones. And leadership identity is built through repetition. Identity shifts don't happen overnight. They happen through repeated action. So every time you have the hard conversation, you set a higher standard. You make a strategic discipline. You lead instead of react. You reinforce a new identity. And James Clear talks about this as casting votes for the type of person you want to become. And leadership works the same way. Each decision becomes evidence. Now, the final thing I found is this, is identity unlocks sustainable growth. So when identity evolves first, strategy becomes far easier. Because once someone truly sees themselves as a leader, they naturally begin to think about systems, scale, impact, vision. Growth stops feeling forced and it starts feeling designed. It's one of my favorite ways to describe how entrepreneurs can build their life is designing a life you love, which is ultimately what allows entrepreneurs and leaders to build businesses that support their dreams, not just consume it. So if this episode resonated with you and you're someone building a business right now or thinking about stepping into leadership in a bigger way, I created something that can really support you. Inside my free community called the LFG Business Academy and School, I share tools, trainings, and conversations around the 3 pillars that we talk about on this podcast: leadership, fulfillment, and growth. And inside that community, there's also a free mini leadership series where I walk through some of the foundational leadership concepts that help entrepreneurs move from execution into true leadership. And you can join completely free, and you can find that link in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If there's one idea I hope you carry with you from this episode, it's this: your business will only grow to the level that your leadership identity allows. So as you continue building your dream, don't just focus on better strategy. Focus on becoming the leader that the next level of your business requires. Because your dream life starts with the way that you lead, the way that you live, and the way that you grow. I'll see you next time on Your Dream Coach podcast.